close your eyes for a moment if you'd like, and let the room around you soften. Let the light behind your eyelids grow dim, the sounds of the present fade, until all that remains is the gentle rhythm of your own breathing in and out. Tonight we are going somewhere very far away and very long ago. We are going back more than 2,000 years, to the years when the Han Empire stretched across the North China Plain like a vast, slow-moving river of human life. The year might be 50 CE or 120 or 180, it hardly matters. The seasons turn in the same quiet order they always have. Spring rain falls on winter wheat. Summer heat presses down on the millet fields. Autumn wind carries the scent of cut sorghum, and winter wraps the villages in pale frost and wood smoke. This is not a story of emperors shouting from golden thrones, nor of armies clashing beneath crimson banners. Tonight belongs to the people who almost never appear in the official histories. The millions of farmers who rose before dawn, whose hands were always in the soil, whose names were never written down. We will walk with them through one ordinary year, and then through many more lives that touched theirs. A quiet female scholar, a princess sewn into jade, a magistrate tending his garden, engineers guiding water across provinces, smiths listening to the breath of their furnaces. There is no rush. Nothing here will startle you awake. If your mind drifts, let it drift. If you fall asleep somewhere in the middle of a rice field 2,000 years ago, that is perfectly all right. The fields will still be there when you return. Breathe in slowly and out. Imagine the faintest trace of wet earth and distant pine drifting across the centuries, finding you here now in this quiet room. And when you are ready, let us begin. The sky is still the color of ash when the first rooster makes its hoarse announcement. Somewhere down the lane, you have been asleep on a low brick king, beneath a quilt stuffed with millet stalks and warmed by last night's embers. The air inside the small earthen house is thick with the smell of smoke that has seeped into the walls for generations. Your mother is already moving. She has been moving for an hour, sweeping the yard, with a broom of bundled sorghum stems, setting a pot of millet porridge over the fire. Porridge bubbles slowly, releasing a faint, comforting steam that smells faintly of earth and yesterday's toil. It is late spring in the commandery of Nanyang, perhaps the year 141 CE outside. The soil is perfect, soft, dark, and moist from the night's dew. Today the entire family, grandparents, parents, you, your siblings, even the aunt who came from the next village, will transplant the rice seedlings that have been growing in their protected seedbed for the past 40 days. You pull on a short jacket of patched hemp cloth. The fabric is coarse. It has been washed so many times that the original color has become the grayish tone of all peasant clothing. Your trousers stop just below the knee, the better to wade into the flooded fields. On your feet you tie straw sandals already half worn through from last season. They will disintegrate entirely before the moon is full again. Your father hands you a bundle of green seedlings tied with a rice straw cord. Each plant is delicate, the roots wrapped in moist mud to keep them alive until they reach their new home. You sling the bundle across your shoulder the way you have done since you were 6. The weight is familiar, almost comforting in its repetition. By the time the sun lifts itself above the low hills, you are already ankle-deep in the paddy. The water is cool at first, almost pleasant, but you know that within an hour it will feel warm and heavy, thick with the finest silt. Leeches drift lazily near the surface. You flick them away without thinking. The mud beneath your feet is soft and greedy. It sucks at your legs with every step, as though the earth itself wants to keep you here forever. Your task is simple, yet endless. Bend at the waist, take one seedling, press its roots gently into the mud, exactly 8 inches from the last plant, exactly 8 inches from the next. Straighten just enough to shift your weight. Bend again, again, again. The rhythm settles over the field like a heartbeat. Bend, plant, step, bend, plant, step. Your back begins to ache before the sun has cleared the morning mist. By the time it is fully light, the ache has become a steady companion, the same companion that accompanied your father when he was young and his father before him. Somewhere to your left, your younger sister is singing under her breath an old working song about the weaving maid and the cowherd who meet only once a year across the Milky Way. Her voice is soft, almost lost beneath the constant splash of water and the murmur of family talk drifting across the field whose ox looked thin yesterday, where the third uncle's roof will survive the rains. How many days remain until the tax collector arrives? The sun climbs higher. The coolness is gone. Now the water reflects the heat back up at you, and the air above the paddy shimmers. Tiny insects rise in clouds from the water, gnats, mosquitoes, nameless winged specks. They find the sweat on your neck, the skin behind your ears. You no longer swat them. Your hands belong to the seedlings. Your fingers soften and prone from long hours in water, and the mud beneath your nails stains them black for weeks. Every so often you straighten your back and feel the vertebrae click softly into place. You glance across the endless green grid stretching to the willow trees and realize you have moved barely 10 paces since breakfast. Breakfast was a bowl of cold millet porridge and a pinch of salt. Lunch will be the same cold porridge, pickled stems, perhaps a duck egg if fortunate kind eaten standing in the field so the mud doesn't seep into your clothes. By mid-afternoon, the sky becomes a harsh brassy blue. Heat radiates from earth and water alike. Your shadow shrinks to a dark blur at your feet. The songs have faded, only the rhythm remains. Bend, plant, step. Sometimes an overseer from the local landholding family walks the raised paths, counting rows and marking tallies. He does not speak. You are one pair of hands among hundreds. The quota is to mow per day 1/6 of an acre. Too many shortfalls mean fines or beatings. So you keep moving. As the sun tilts westward, the insects ease and the air cools slightly. Your grandmother, working the next field with the same steady pace she has kept for 6 decades, calls out that only 3 rows remain. 3 rows can feel like 30 when your spine burns, but you nod and continue. When the final seedling meets the mud, the sky glows gold. Paddy water mirrors the evening light, and for a moment the field seems beautiful rows of young green rising from dark water beneath the softening sky. You step onto the bun, the mud releasing your feet with sticky sighs. Home lies along the raised paths your ancestors walked. Your legs tremble, your hands swell, your stomach hollows, waiting for thin millet soup. At the compound gate, the dog wags lazily. Smoke curls from the kitchen chimney. You drop onto the packed earth bench and let the eggs settle. Your mother hands you a bowl to rinse your feet. The water turns black instantly. Inside, the one room fills with gentle shadows. The king warms again. Tonight you will sleep deeply until the rooster cries at dawn and the cycle begins anew. This is one day. Hundreds more will follow before harvest. Then the work will change, but not the endlessness, yet between ache and hunger. Something steady remains, something like peace. The same stars wheel overhead that shone on your great-grandfather. The same river feeds the soil, the same willows whisper in the night. You are tired beyond words, but alive. Tomorrow the weeds await. The next day the irrigation ditches. The next day something else. There is always another day. Close your eyes now. Let the imagined ache fade with the dying light. Feel the cool Han Dynasty evening air settle like a soft blanket. Rest here a while among the quiet fields. The only sound is water against buns and the breathing of millions who fed an empire. One seedling at a time. When you are ready, I will be here, and we will walk on together. The life of Ban Zhao, scholar and quiet revolutionary. The year is 48 CE, and in the city of Anling, not far from the modern city of Xianyang, a girl is born into the distinguished Ban family. Her father, Ban Zhao, is a respected historian quietly continuing the great work begun by his own father. The household is filled with the soft rustle of bamboo scrolls and the low murmur of scholars copying texts by lamplight. From her earliest years, little Zhao learns to move without disturbing the silence of study. She watches her older brothers practice calligraphy at low tables, their sleeves tied back with silk cords. She listens as her father reads aloud from the odes in a measured, unhurried voice. Even as a child of 5 or 6, she understands that words on bamboo can outlive bronze and stone. The scent of fresh ink and warmed wax tablets becomes as familiar to her as the smell of rice steaming in the kitchen. By the age of 14, Ban Zhao is already married to a young man named Cao Shishu from a neighboring scholarly family. The wedding is simple, in keeping with the family's restrained elegance: red silk banners, quiet music of zithers, and the faint fragrance of osmanthus flowers in the courtyard. Her husband is kind, though often away on minor official postings. She settles into the rhythms of a young wife, supervising the servants, tending the ancestral tablets, copying passages from the classics for her own quiet practice. Yet every evening, after the lamps are trimmed low, she returns to her father's library. There she reads by the light of a single bronze lamp shaped like a kneeling deer. The flame flickers gently across the lines of ancient characters, and she traces them with a slender finger. In those hours, the house is so still that she can hear the soft creak of the bamboo strips as they warm in her. Hence, tragedy arrives quietly, as it so often did. Her father dies before completing his great history of the former Han Dynasty. Her older brother Ban Zhao takes up the task, but within a few years he too is gone, caught in the dangerous currents of court politics and executed on false charges. The unfinished manuscript lies in wooden boxes, hundreds of thousands of characters waiting for someone to give them order. The emperor himself, through a cautious eunuch, sends word that the work must be finished. Ban Zhao, now a widow in her 40s, is summoned to the palace in Luoyang. She travels by slow oxcart along the well-maintained imperial roads, passing willow-lined canals and quiet market towns. When she arrives, the palace seems impossibly vast, yet she walks its corridors with the same measured steps she once used in her father's library. Servants bow. Eunuchs glance at her curiously, this quiet woman in plain silk robes who carries no jewelry, but a single jade hairpin. In the palace library, Ban Zhao is given a small chamber overlooking a lotus pond. Each morning she rises before dawn, washes her face in cool water scented with mint, and begins the slow work of editing and continuing her brother's history. She checks every quotation against older scrolls, corrects dates that were off by a single year, adds gentle clarifications where the text might confuse later readers. Her handwriting is small, precise, and perfectly even. Scholars centuries later will admire its serene beauty. Sometimes she pauses to watch the lotus flowers open in the morning light, their pale pink petals unfurling like the pages of a book. At noon, palace women bring her a simple meal: clear soup, steamed rice, a few slices of pickled ginger. She eats slowly, grateful for the quiet. In the evening, she burns a single stick of a rosewood incense. It's faint, resinous, and helps her think. The emperor's young empress and the ladies of the court soon hear that there is a learned woman in the library who speaks softly and never flatters. They invite her to lecture on the classic of poetry and the book of rites. Ban Zhao accepts, though she asks that the lectures be held in a small side hall where only a dozen women sit on low stools. She speaks in a low, steady voice about the importance of humility, knowing one's proper place within the cosmic order. Yet within those traditional teachings she slips quiet lessons of dignity. Woman may be subordinate, but she is never without worth. She may be silent in public, but her mind need never be empty. The young empress listens with shining eyes. Some of the older palace ladies nod slowly. They recognize the careful balance of obedience and strength. After each lecture, Ban Zhao bows and returns to her scrolls, leaving behind the faint fragrance of a rosewood and the softer fragrance of independent thought. Over the years, she composes her own book, Lessons for Women, in 7 gentle chapters. She writes it first for her daughters, who are growing up in a world that still believes a woman's name should not leave the inner quarters. The text is quiet, almost austere, yet every sentence is chosen with care. She advises humility, but also industry, silence in front of men, but constant self-cultivation, obedience to husbands, but also the importance of educating sons so that they will treat their own wives with respect. Scholars later will argue over whether the book reinforced tradition or quietly undermined it. Ban Zhao herself never raises her voice in the debate, she simply lives the balance she teaches. When the book is finished, she copies it in her small, perfect hand and places it in a plain wooden box. She does not seek to have it published in her lifetime. As she grows older, her hair turns the color of frost, yet she continues to work every day. Palace servants notice that she never seems hurried even when deadlines approach. Her brush moves at the same unvarying pace. In the evening, she sometimes walks alone in the palace garden, watching the moon rise above the artificial hills. The moonlight falls across her plain robes like quiet water. She thinks of her childhood home, of the brother who will never finish his sentences, of the daughters who now have daughters of their own. She feels no bitterness, only a deep, steady calm, the calm of someone who has arranged tens of thousands of characters into order and, in doing so, arranged her own heart. When she dies at the age of 71 or 72, no one is quite sure. She leaves behind a completed history of the former Han, a small book of lessons that will be read for 2,000 years, and the memory of a woman who spoke softly yet changed the air of every room she entered. Tonight, if you are still awake, imagine yourself in that small palace chamber overlooking the lotus pond. The night is warm and still. A single lamp burns low, its flame perfectly steady outside. A faint breeze moves the lotus leaves with the softest possible sound. On the table lies an open scroll, the ink still faintly fragrant. Ban Zhao has just set down her brush for the night. She sits for a moment in perfect silence, her hands folded in her lap, breathing in the scent of a lost wood and distant water. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to fear. Only the quiet turning of pages yet unwritten and the gentle certainty that someone somewhere will read them long after she is gone. Let that stillness settle over you now. Let the measured rhythm of her life, patient, precise, and quietly revolutionary, carry you deeper into the night. When you are ready, we will walk on together toward a princess wrapped in threads of gold and the faint, lingering hope of living forever. The jade burial suit, secrets of a Han princess in the year 1983. On a low hill outside the modern city of Shijiazhuang, a group of soldiers from the People's Liberation Army are digging an air raid shelter. Their shovels ring softly against the yellow earth of Hebei province. The afternoon is warm and quiet, filled only with the usual sounds of pickaxes and the low conversation of men at work. Suddenly a spade strikes something that is neither stone nor brick. The soldier kneels, brushes away the loose soil, and sees a faint greenish gleam. Word travels quickly up the chain of command. Within hours, archaeologists are carefully lowering themselves into the half-collapsed tunnel that they find will travel around the world in hushed photographs, an underground palace, untouched for 2,100 years, and at its heart, a princess sewn entirely in jade. The tomb belongs to Duan, wife of Prince Yusheng, who died around 113 BCE during the golden age of Emperor Wu of the Western Han. The hill itself, called Mancheng, had hidden the secret perfectly. Even local farmers had no idea that the complete royal tombs lay beneath their wheat fields. The entrance tunnel, once sealed with melted iron and massive stone slabs, had kept out every robber for 20 centuries. When the archaeologists finally crawled inside, their flashlights moved slowly across walls painted with flowing clouds and mythical beasts. The air is cool and perfectly still, carrying only the faintest trace of ancient incense. Every footstep echoes softly, as though the tomb itself is breathing after a very long sleep. Deep inside the main chamber, they find her. Princess Duan lies in a coffin of lacquered wood surrounded by a small city of grave goods, bronze lamps still holding traces of oil, delicate pottery figurines of servants frozen in eternal attendance, and tiny gold inlaid bells that would have chimed gently when the coffin was carried. But nothing prepares them for the burial suit itself. Then 2,000 thin jade plaques, each no larger than a fingernail, have been carefully shaped and polished until they glow with a soft, milky light. plaques are sewn together with over a kilogram of pure gold thread, drawn so fine it feels like silk. The suit covers her from head to toe, even enclosing the fingers and face in a delicate mask. When the archaeologists lift one corner, the jade pieces shift with the faintest whisper, like wind moving through bamboo leaves. Jade has always been more than stone in China since the Neolithic. People have believed that its cool, unyielding nature can preserve the body and the spirit forever. The Han nobles took this belief to its quiet extreme. Court astrologers and Taoist priests advised that if the corpse were completely encased in jade, Bo and Han souls could remain together instead of drifting apart at death. The jade would keep out air, moisture, and decay, giving the dead noble time to ascend as an immortal among the stars. Liu Xing and Du Wan, half-brother and sister-in-law to Emperor Wu himself, could afford the very best. Craftsmen spent years carving each tiny plaque, drilling minute holes at the corners, and threading them together with gold so pure it never tarnishes. When the suit was finished, it weighed almost 20 kilograms, yet it moved like the softest fabric. Imagine the day they dressed her. The palace women have washed her body with water scented with orchids, and wrapped her hair with silk cords. The chamber is lit only by bronze lamps whose flames burn steady and low. One by one, the sections of the suit are brought forward on lacquered trays, the hood with its delicate face, mask, the jacket, the trousers, the gloves, the slippers. Each piece is laid gently over her still form. Court ladies thread the final golden wires through the last holes, their fingers moving slowly so the jade does not clink. And the mask is lowered over her face. The golden threads across the lips look almost like a faint, peaceful smile. The chief unit burns a stick of aloes wood. Its thin smoke curls upward and disappears into the beams of the morning hall. No one speaks, but a whisper. The ritual is not rushed. Immortality cannot be hurried. Around her in the tomb, everything is arranged for a quiet eternity. A small mountain of silk bolts, red, gold, and pale green, lies folded in wooden boxes. Colors still vivid after 2 millennia. Bronze vessels that once held warm wine now stand empty and patient. A set of tiny bronze musicians wait with their instruments, bells, chimes, and a stone lithophone whose notes no living ear will ever hear again. In one corner sits a complete kitchen and miniature bronze pots, iron tripods, even a little clay stove with real charcoal that was never lit. Servants who died with her lie inside chambers, their simpler coffins arranged like petals around the central flower. The entire tomb is a hushed world where nothing moves except the slow settling, dust across 20 centuries. When the archaeologists finally lift the jade suit piece by piece, they work in near silence. Each jade plaque is numbered and photographed in place. The gold threads are so delicate that they bend under their own weight like spider silk. Underneath the suit, Duan's body has long since returned to the earth, leaving only a faint shadow of mineralized silk and the imprint of her bones. Yet the suit itself is almost perfect. Only a few plaques near the feet have shifted out of place. In the laboratory years later, scientists will discover that the jade is nephrite from distant Heishan and Xinjiang, carried thousands of kilometers by camel and oxcart. The gold came from even farther, perhaps the mountains of the south. Every thread, every polished surface speaks of patience measured in human lifetimes. Tonight, if your eyes are still open, picture yourself standing at the foot of that quiet coffin. The only light comes from a single flashlight held low, so the jade glows with a soft inner moon color. The air is cool and perfectly dry, carrying the faintest memory of incense and distant orchids. Around you, the tomb goods wait in perfect order, as though the princess has simply stepped away for a moment and will return before dawn. Listen closely, and you can almost hear the tiniest shift of jade against jade when the earth breathes far above. Nothing here is hurried. Nothing here is loud. There's only the gentle certainty that some things jade gold, and the quiet hope of living forever can wait longer than empires. Let that stillness settle over you like the cool weight of nephrite against skin. Let the faint glow of 2,000-year-old jade become the last light behind your eyelids. When you are ready, we will leave the princess to her long dream and walk upward through the corridors of the living toward gardens where officials once strolled beneath willow trees, measuring out their days in slow, deliberate steps. Inside a Han Dynasty official's villa, it is the third watch of the night, and the villa of Magistrate Leah Yingchuan lies wrapped in perfect silence. A low moon hangs above the tiled roofs, turning the courtyard ponds into sheets of pale silver. Somewhere far beyond the outer wall, a night watchman strikes a wooden clapper, 3 slow beats that drift across the sleeping city, and then fade. Inside the compound, only the faintest glow escapes from the lattice windows of the master's study. Magistrate Lee is still awake, though he is in no hurry. He sits at a low lacquered table, a single bronze lamp with a crane-shaped handle burning quietly beside him. The flame does not flicker, the finest sesame oil burns clean and steady. On the table lies an open scroll of pale green bamboo, and his brush moves across it with the same unhurried rhythm that governs every part of his life. The villa itself covers more ground than 20 peasant farms pressed together. From the gatehouse, a straight central path of packed white earth leads past to symmetrical courtyards to the main hall. On either side stand lesser halls for guests, storehouses, kitchens, stables, and the quiet women's quarters at the very back. Every roof curves upward at the corners like the wings of resting birds. Gray tiles overlap in perfect rows, their edges softened by 200 years of gentle rain. In spring, wisteria climbs the pillars and releases its faint perfume into the corridors. In autumn, the persimmon trees drop their orange fruit onto the stone pots with soft, regular thuds that the servants sweep away before the master wakes. Nothing here is ever loud. Nothing is ever out of place. Magistrate Lee rises at the first hint of dawn, long after the peasants have already been at work for hours. A young servant boy brings warm water scented with plum blossoms so the master can wash his face and rinse his mouth. Another boy combs his long hair and binds it with a simple black silk cord. The robe he puts on is dark blue silk, unpatterned except for the discreet rank badge of a 5th grade official sewn inside the collar, where only other officials will see it. Breakfast is served in the eastern pavilion, thin rice porridge, tiny dishes of pickled lotus root, salted duck egg, and a single steamed pear. He eats slowly, listening to the morning songs of the caged orioles that hang beneath the eaves. When the meal is finished, the bowls are removed so silently that the birds never stop singing. By the time the sun has fully cleared the roof tiles, the magistrate walks to the front hall to receive visitors. Local landowners come to discuss irrigation disputes. A merchant seeks permission to open a new one. A minor clerk presents the tax accounts written on long wooden slips. He listens to each man without hurry, his hands folded inside his wide sleeves. When he speaks, his voice is low and even. He never raises it, even when correcting an error. Decisions are written in small, perfect characters on fresh bamboo slips, then sealed with his vermilion seal that leaves the faint scent of cinnabar in the air. Between appointments, he sometimes pauses to look out at the garden. A scholar rock from Lake Tai stands alone on a bed of white pebbles, surrounded by dwarf bamboo that sways in the gentlest breeze. The sight calms him the way fields of rice calm a peasant, though he would never say so aloud. At noon the household eats together, though in strict order of rank. The magistrate and his wife take their meal in a small side hall overlooking the lotus pond. Their grown son, who is studying for the examinations in Luoyang, eats with the senior clerks. The concubines eat later in their own pavilion. Servants and maids eat last in the kitchen courtyard. But even there the food is better than anything a peasant family sees in a month. Rice every day, pork twice a week, fresh vegetables from the villa's own walled garden. No one goes hungry here. No one raises their voice. The rules are old, intricate, and comforting in their certainty. In the afternoon, when the heat presses down on the city outside, Magistrate Lee retires to his library. The room smells of old books and aloes wood. Scrolls are stored in rosewood cabinets, each labeled in his own neat hand. He selects a volume of the Zhou commentary, unrolls it across the reading stand, reads a page or two while a young servant fans him with a feather fan. Sometimes he composes a short poem about the season, writing it first on scrap paper, then copying the final version onto a sheet of fine white paper from Sichuan. The ink is thick and black, made from soot collected from pine branches burned in clay jars. When the poem is finished, he folds it and places it in a lacquered box. He will show it to no one until it is time to exchange verses with friends. At the mid-autumn banquet, evenings belong to music and quiet conversation, the magistrate's favorite concubine. A woman from Wu with a voice like cool water plays the 25-string say zither in the moon-viewing pavilion. The notes drift across the courtyard and mingle with the scent of late-blooming osmanthus. His wife sits nearby, embroidering a silk panel with a design of cranes among clouds. Their little granddaughter, allowed to stay up past her usual bedtime, falls asleep with her head on her grandmother's knee. Servants move through the corridors carrying bronze lamps whose openwork shades cast patterns of pine branches onto the walls. When the piece ends, no one applauds. Applause would break the stillness. They simply let the last note fade into the night air. At the end of the month, the magistrate performs the family sacrifices. He bathes, puts on plain white robes, leads his sons and grandsons to the ancestral hall at the back of the compound. Tablets of polished boxwood stand in perfect rows, each bearing the name of an ancestor in vermilion ink. He lights 3 sticks of incense, bows 3 times, and pours a small cup of heated wine onto the ground before the tablets. The smoke rises straight and thin, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood through the hall. Outside, the household stands in silence, heads bowed. Even the dogs know not to bark. When the ritual is complete, the magistrate feels the same quiet certainty he feels when a difficult judgment has been fairly rendered. The world is in order, for tonight at least. Much later, when the lamps are trimmed low and the villa has settled into its deepest hush, Magistrate Lee returns to his study one last time. He sits for a moment in the dark, listening to the soft drip of the water clock in the corner. Each drop marks the passing of a fixed portion of the night, steady as a heartbeat. He thinks of the peasants sleeping on their hard cangs beyond the city walls, of the princess sealed in jade far beneath the distant hill, of the quiet woman who once lectured impresses in a palace, now half ruined. All of them, he reflects, are moving through time at different speeds, yet all will arrive at the same place. The thought does not disturb him. He rises, walks to his sleeping chamber, and lies down on a bed curtained in pale green silk. The mattress is filled with cattail down. Pillow is cool porcelain. Within moments, his breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the water clock. Outside, the moon has set. The courtyard ponds lie black and still. A single lotus flower, late in the season, closes its petals for the night. Everything here is arranged for calm continuance. Roofs will shed rain for another 100 years. The scrolls will outlast the house. The family name will be spoken long after the tiles have fallen. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is wasted. The night air moves gently through the corridors, carrying the faint scent of osmanthus and old books, and the villa sleeps the way mountains sleep, slowly, deeply, and without dreams. Let that same slow, deep quiet settle over you now. Let the measured hours of a Han official's day become the gentle ticking that carries you further from waking when you are ready. We will leave these ordered courtyards behind and follow the quiet flow of water across the empire, to canals and dikes that fed a civilization one careful drop at a time. How Han irrigation systems fed an empire long before the sun touches the eastern ridge. The water itself is already awake. It moves quietly through the main canal that runs past the village of Zhang, family hamlet in modern-day Henan. Canal is wide enough for 2 small boats to pass without touching. Its banks are lined with willow trees whose roots drink steadily from the flow. Every few li along its length, below earthen dike holds the water at exactly the right height, At each dike a wooden sluice gate, weights bound with iron and sealed with clay. When the gate is lifted just a finger's breadth, water slips over the lip like pale silk and spreads across the waiting fields. The sound it makes is almost nothing, just a soft, continuous whisper that has been the same every spring for 400 years. Farmers sleeping on. There are kings here that whisper in their dreams and know the rice will live another day. The greatest of all Han water systems begins far to the west. The Yellow River leaves its mountain gorges and spreads across the North China Plain. There, engineers of the former Han dug the Dragon Head Canal in the time of Emperor Wu. The canal's mouth is shaped like an open dragon's jaws, catching the river's flow and turning it gently southward. Over 200 li it travels, perfectly straight where the land is flat, gently curving where low hills stand in the way every winter. Thousands of conscript laborers walk its length with baskets on their backs, repairing tiny cracks before they can grow. They move slowly, speaking little, the rhythm of their steps matching the rhythm of the water they serve. When spring comes, canal fills again and the plain turns silver under the moon. Closer to the capital, the Bayan Canal carries grain boats from the rich southeast all the way to Luoyang and Chang'an. At dawn, the boats leave the docks in perfect order, their square sails catching the first pale light. Each boat carries 500 shi of rice, enough to feed 1,000 people for a month. The boatmen pull in slow, steady strokes while a boy at the bow pours a little wine into the water as thanks to the river. Spirit. Locks made of heavy timber lift or lower the boats one by one. The gates creak softly, then close with a muted thud. Travelers standing on the bank can watch an entire fleet rise or fall a man's height in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. The water never hurries. The boats never hurry. Everything moves at the pace the river allows. In the fields themselves, smaller canals branch into smaller ditches and then into the tiniest threads. Run between every row of rice. Farmers open these threads with their feet, pressing a heel into the soft mud to make a gap no wider than a finger. Water finds the gap immediately and slides in, spreading in perfect sheets no deeper than an inch. When the field is covered, the farmer closes the gap with another gentle press of the heel. He does this hundreds of times a day, walking barefoot along the narrow buns. Feeling the cool mud between his toes, his father taught him the skill, and his father's father before him. No one measures with tools. The water itself teaches where it wants to go. During the dry months of late spring, water becomes precious. Village elders meet under the old locust tree and decide whose fields will drink first. They speak softly, passing a bamboo tally from hand to hand. One argues loudly, the river is listening. When the decision is made, the night watchman walks the canals with a lantern, opening and closing gates according to the agreed order. His shadow moves along the banks like a slow ghost. Farmers wake at the sound of water entering their fields and stand at the edge in the dark, listening to the soft spreading sound. They do not speak. They simply bow toward the canal and go back to sleep. In the 7th month, when the summer rains come, the problem is too much water instead of too little, then the dikes must hold. And then women line the banks with baskets of earth, walking single file, adding one basket at a time to the crest. Children carry smaller baskets. Old people sit and weave mats of sorghum stalks to lay over the fresh earth. The work goes on for days and nights without stopping. Lanterns hang from bamboo poles so the work can continue in the dark. The river rises higher and higher, pressing against the dikes like a patient animal. When the rain finally stops, the river sinks back, leaving the dikes stronger than before. People sleep for an entire day afterward, too tired even to dream. Every few years, a truly great flood threatens the entire plain. Then the emperor himself sends officials with red umbrellas and the imperial seal. They ride day and night along the raised roads, stopping only to change horses when they reach the danger point. They set up a temporary altar of yellow earth and sacrifice a black ox to the river god. The officials bow 3 times, their silk robes trailing in the mud. Soldiers and farmers work side by side, passing baskets so quickly that the line becomes a living chain. Women cook millet porridge in huge cauldrons and carry it to the workers in wooden buckets. The smell of hot food drifts across the floodplain and keeps people moving long after their strength should have failed. Far to the south, in the land of Shu, engineers build an even stranger wonder, the Dujiang fish mouth divider. The low wedge of stone splits the Min River into two gentle streams that water the Chengdu Plain forever. No dams, no high walls, just a quiet arrangement of water and rock that has worked without failing since 256 BCE. Farmers there still perform the annual dredging ceremony, wading into the river with bamboo rakes while musicians play flutes on the bank. The water accepts their offering and continues its patient division of itself. Rice grows so abundantly that people say 1 year in Shu feeds 3 years anywhere else. Tonight, wherever you are, let the sound of moving water become the only sound you hear. Imagine standing on a narrow bun at twilight, the sky reflected perfectly in the flooded field. The water is cool against your ankles. A single dragonfly hovers above the surface, then darts away. Somewhere far upstream, a sluice gate closes with a soft wooden thud, and the level in your field drops by the width of one rice leaf. Everything is in balance. Everything is quiet. The empire itself rests on this balance, yet the water never boasts about its importance. It simply flows day after day, century after century, carrying life the way breath carries sleep. Let that slow, patient flow carry you now. Let the gentle opening and closing of wooden gates become the rhythm of your own breathing. When you are ready, we will leave the canals behind and walk toward the quiet glow of furnace fires, where iron is learning very slowly to change the world. The night sky above the Han Empire is wider and deeper than any modern sky you have ever seen. And no street lights, no glowing windows, no airplanes crossing the dark. Only the slow wheel of countless stars and the pale river of the Milky Way flowing from horizon to horizon. In every village and every palace courtyard, people step outside after the evening meal and look up in quiet wonder. The same stars that watched over their grandparents now watch over them. Farmers know the constellations by the names their fathers taught them. The weaver maid, the cowherd, the northern dipper that points the way home. Court astronomers in Luoyang record the exact moment each star rises and sets, writing the information on narrow bamboo slips tied with red cord. To the Han mind, heaven and earth are not separate. They breathe together like two lungs in one body. At the center of this breathing cosmos stands the concept of the mandate of heaven. It is not shouted from rooftops. It is simply understood the way one understands that spring follows winter. When a ruler is virtuous, the sky is calm, the harvests are good, and the people sleep peacefully. When a ruler grows cruel or neglectful, strange signs appear, comets with long tails, eclipses that swallow the sun, floods that should not happen. The people do not panic. They simply note the signs and wait. The mandate can be lost as quietly as a lantern flame going out in the rain. The Han people watch the sky the way sailors watch the sea, respectfully, patiently, and without illusion. In every home, no matter how poor, there is a small ancestral altar made of wood or packed earth. On it stand simple wooden tablets, each carved with the name of a dead parent or grandparent. Twice a month, on the 1st and 15th, the family gathers before the tablets at dusk. The father lights 3 sticks of incense. The thin smoke rises straight up and then spreads like a gentle cloud. The little rice wine is poured into a small cup and then tipped onto the ground. As an offering, the children bow low, their foreheads almost touching the cool floor. One speaks loudly. The ancestors are thought to be near, listening with the same quiet attention they once gave to their living children. When the short ritual ends, the family feels lighter, as though invisible threads have been retied. On certain nights, the sky itself seems to speak. When a comet appears, astronomers hurry to the palace with their reports. The emperor orders extra sacrifices, perhaps a white horse led to the altar. the sacred Mautai, ordinary people watch from their doorways and whisper that change is coming. Sometimes the change is gentle, sometimes it is not, yet even fear is measured and calm. Come, it will pass, the stars will return to their places, and life will continue its slow rhythm. The Han people do not fight against the cosmos. They move with it the way a boat moves with the current. In the countryside, local spirits are honored with the same quiet care. There's the spirit of the soil and grain who lives under the old locust tree at the edge of the village once a year. In the second month, the villagers bring steamed buns and a bowl of clear wine to the tree. The eldest man pours the wine slowly at the roots while the children stand in a silent half circle. A single red paper charm is tied to a low branch, yet flutters softly in the spring wind. No one expects the spirit to appear, but everyone feels the land grow calmer afterward. The crops seem to know they have been remembered. Inside the palace, the emperor himself performs the grandest rituals of all. At the winter solstice, he climbs the round mound south of the capital, dressed in plain yellow robes. The steps are cold under his feet, the night air is perfectly still. At the top he lights incense and bows to heaven, to earth, and to his own ancestors in careful order. Musicians play ancient music on stone chimes and bronze bells. The notes drift across the sleeping city like gentle rain. The ceremony lasts for hours, yet no one hurries. When the first pale light touches the horizon, the emperor descends and the new year begins under the renewed mandate. Even death is not feared the way we sometimes fear it. The dead simply move to another part of the same cosmos, watch over their descendants the way stars watch over travelers. Graves are placed on hillsides facing south so the ancestors can enjoy the sun. Food and wine are left at the tomb on festival days. Paper clothes are burned so the dead will not be cold. The living speak to the dead in low voices, telling them about the new baby, the good harvest, the marriage that turned out well. The conversation never really ends. It simply becomes quieter. Tonight, wherever you are lying, let the great wheel of the Han sky turn slowly above you. Let the silence between the stars become the silence in your room. Imagine the faint scent of incense drifting across 2,000 years and settling gently on your pillow. The same heavens that watched over emperors and farmers still watch over you. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is lost. The mandate flows quietly from one generation to the next, carried on threads of smoke and starlight. Let that vast, patient calm settle over your whole body now. Let the slow turning of constellations match the slow turning of your thoughts toward sleep. When you are ready, we will leave the night sky behind and follow the creak of oxcarts along roads that once carried the entire empire one careful mile at a time. The night sky above the Han Empire is wider and deeper than any modern sky you have ever seen. No street lights, no glowing windows, no airplanes crossing the dark. Only the slow wheel of countless stars and the pale river of the Milky Way flowing from horizon to horizon. In every village and every palace courtyard, people step outside after the evening meal and look up in quiet wonder. The same stars that watched over their grandparents now watch over them. Farmers know the constellations by the names their fathers taught them. The weaver maid, the cowherd, the northern dipper that points the way home. Court astronomers in Luoyang record the exact moment each star rises and sets, writing the information on narrow bamboo slips tied with red cord. To the Han mind, heaven and earth are not separate. They breathe together like two lungs in one body. At the center of this breathing cosmos stands the concept of the mandate of heaven. It is not shouted from rooftops. It is simply understood the way one understands that spring follows winter. When a ruler is virtuous, the sky is calm, the harvests are good, and the people sleep peacefully. When a ruler grows cruel or neglectful, strange signs appear. Comets with long tails, eclipses that swallow the sun, floods that should not happen. The people do not panic. They simply note the signs and wait. The mandate can be lost as quietly as a lantern flame going out in the rain. The Han people watch the sky the way sailors watch the sea, respectfully, patiently. and without illusion. In every home, no matter how poor, there is a small ancestral altar made of wood or packed earth. On it stand simple wooden tablets, each carved with the name of a dead parent or grandparent. Twice a month, on the 1st and 15th, the family gathers before the tablets at dusk. The father lights 3 sticks of incense. The thin smoke rises straight up and then spreads like a gentle cloud. The little rice wine is poured into a small cup and then tipped onto the ground. As an offering, the children bow low, their foreheads almost touching the cool floor. One speaks loudly. The ancestors are thought to be near, listening with the same quiet attention they once gave to their living children. When the short ritual ends, the family feels lighter, as though invisible threads have been retied. On certain nights, the sky itself seems to speak. When a comet appears, astronomers hurry to the palace with their reports. The emperor orders extra sacrifices, perhaps a white horse led to the altar. The sacred Maotai, ordinary people watch from their doorways and whisper that change is coming. Sometimes the change is gentle, sometimes it is not, yet even fear is measured and calm. Comet will pass, the stars will return to their places, and life will continue its slow rhythm. The Han people do not fight against the cosmos. They move with it the way a boat moves with the current. In the countryside, local spirits are honored with the same quiet care. There's the spirit of the soil and grain who lives under the old locust tree at the edge of the village once a year. In the 2nd month, the villagers bring steamed buns and a bowl of clear wine to the tree. The eldest man pours the wine slowly at the roots while the children stand in a silent half circle. A single red paper charm is tied to a low branch. It flutters softly in the spring wind. No one expects the spirit to appear, but everyone feels the land grow calmer afterward. The crops seem to know they have been remembered. Inside the palace, the emperor himself performs the grandest rituals of all. At the winter solstice, he climbs the round mound south of the capital, dressed in plain yellow robes. The steps are cold under his feet. The night air is perfectly still. At the top, he lights incense and bows to heaven, to earth, and to his own ancestors in careful order. Musicians play ancient music on stone chimes and bronze bells. The notes drift across the sleeping city like gentle rain. The ceremony lasts for hours, yet no one hurries. When the first pale light touches the horizon, the emperor descends and the new year begins under the renewed mandate. Even death is not feared the way we sometimes fear it. The dead simply move to another part of the same cosmos, watch over their descendants the way stars watch over travelers. Graves are placed on hillsides facing south so the ancestors can enjoy the sun. Food and wine are left at the tomb on festival days. Paper clothes are burned so the dead will not be cold. The living speak to the dead in low voices, telling them about the new baby, the good harvest, the marriage that turned out well. The conversation never really ends. It simply becomes quieter. Tonight, wherever you are lying, let the great wheel of the Han sky turn slowly above you. Let the silence between the stars become the silence in your room. Imagine the faint scent of incense drifting across 2,000 years and settling gently on your pillow. The same heavens that watched over emperors and farmers still watch over you. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is lost. The mandate flows quietly from one generation to the next, carried on threads of smoke and starlight. Let that vast, patient calm settle over your whole body now. Let the slow turning of constellations match the slow turning of your thoughts toward sleep. When you are ready, we will leave the night sky behind and follow the creak of oxcarts along roads that once carried the entire empire 1 careful mile at a time. The courier leaves the relay station at the first hint of gray in the east. His horse is small and sturdy, the kind bred on the northern grasslands. A red silk pennant flutters from the saddle, marking him as an official messenger. Inside the leather pouch across his chest are bamboo slips, sealed with the emperor's vermilion cord. He mounts without hurry, settles the pouch against his side, and starts southward at an easy trot. The road is wide and straight. raised slightly above the surrounding field so that winter floods cannot wash it away. Willow trees line both sides, planted generations ago to give shade and mark the miles. Every 15 li stands a small post house with fresh horses, warm tea, and a quiet room where a man can rest without removing his boots. The courier will change horses for times before nightfall and still cover more than 200 li by moonlight. Ordinary travelers move much more slowly. The merchant family from Chang'an is taking silk to the southern markets. They rise long before dawn, fold their felt blankets, and load the two-wheeled cart with bolts of pale green and deep crimson cloth. The father walks beside the ox, guiding it with a soft whistle and the occasional tap of a bamboo stick. His wife sits in the cart with their youngest child asleep against her shoulder. Two older sons walk behind, carrying long staffs in case of dogs. The wheels creak in a steady rhythm that never changes hour after hour. Bess rises gently behind them and settles again like pale flour. They speak little. The road itself is conversation enough. At noon they stop beneath a grove of willow trees beside a small stone bridge. The mother unpacks cold millet cakes in a bamboo tube of pickled vegetables. The ox lowers its head to drink from the stream, the bell around its neck giving a single soft clang. Dragonflies hover above the water in slow circles. The family eats in silence, listening to the leaves rustle overhead. When the meal is finished, the father pours a few drops of water onto the ground for the local spirit of the road. Then they move on, the cartwheels finding the same ruts they followed yesterday and will follow tomorrow. Inns appear at regular intervals, usually near a river crossing or a market town. The largest have courtyards big enough for 20 carts and stables that smell of warm hay and horse sweat. Lanterns of red paper hang from the eaves, glowing softly as dusk settles. Travelers gather around low tables to drink warm rice wine and eat bowls of noodle soup, with scallions floating on top. Conversation is quiet. Men speak of grain prices, of bandits that were seen last month, the new tax collector who was said to be fair. Women sit together in a separate corner, mending clothes by lamplight. Children fall asleep on the benches, their heads pillowed on folded cloaks. Some travelers walk the entire way. A scholar on his way to the capital carries only a cloth bundle and a bamboo staff. He rises at dawn, walks until noon, rests in the shade of a wayside pavilion, then walks again until the stars come out. Every pavilion has stone benches and a cistern of cool water inscribed on the walls are short poems left by earlier travelers for lines about moonlight on willows or the sound of rain on a thatched roof. The scholar reads them slowly, nodding at the familiar images. Sometimes he adds a line of his own with a brush and a little ink he carries in a wooden box. The new poem will wait there for the next tired traveler to read. Rain turns the road to mud, but travel does not stop. Oxcarts sink to the hubs, and the animals strain forward with low grunts. Men lay down straw mats to give the wheels purchase. Women carry children on their backs so their feet stay dry. The rain falls straight and gentle, the kind of rain that soaks without anger. Lanterns swing from the carts, throwing circles of yellow light onto the wet road. The smell of wetter than wet straw fills the air. No one complains. Rain is part of the bargain made with heaven long ago. Bridges are wonders of quiet engineering. Some are simple wooden planks laid across stone piers. Others are great stone arches that rise high above rushing rivers. The largest, like the one near Luoyang, have carved dragons coiled around the pillars. Travelers pause in the middle to look down at the water far below. The river moves slowly, carrying reflections of clouds and the faint shimmer of fish. Children drop willow leaves over the railing and watch them spin away downstream. The stone is cool under the hand, worn smooth by generations of travelers doing exactly the same thing. At night, the road belongs to different sounds. Owls call from the willow groves. Somewhere far off, a temple bell rings once for the evening service. The wind moves through the trees with a sound like distant waves. Travelers lie on straw mats in the inn courtyards, listening to the creak of cartwheels arriving late. The stars are bright enough to read by. Sleep comes easily wrapped in the familiar rhythm of the road. Tonight, let the slow turning of cartwheels become the slow turning of your thoughts. Let the soft creak of axles and the whisper of willow leaves overhead carry you gently away from waking. The road has been here for 2,000 years and will be here long after we are gone. Nothing is hurried, nothing is lost. Only the quiet journey continues mile after mile under the same patient stars. The market town of Lingshan wakes slowly the way a cat stretches in sunlight, long before the sun itself appears. First farmers are already walking the narrow lanes with baskets balanced on shoulder poles. Their sandals make a soft padding sound on the packed earth street. A few early oil lamps flicker in doorways, giving off the faint scent of sesame oil. Somewhere a rooster calls once, then thinks better of it and falls silent. The wooden gates of the market square are still closed, but people wait patiently outside, leaning against the walls and speaking in low voices. When the watchman finally strikes the drum 5 times, the gates creak open on leather hinges. The day has officially begun, though nothing feels rushed. Inside the square, stalls are arranged in perfect rows like soldiers on parade. Each stall has a bamboo frame and a roof of woven straw that keeps out the midday sun. Red paper signs hang from the front beams, announcing what is sold beneath: rice, salt, iron pans, silk ribbons, medicinal herbs, live chickens. The air is still cool and carries the clean smell of dew on vegetables. Vendors sweep the ground in front of their stalls with short brooms, raising tiny clouds of dust that drift away in the morning breeze. Customers move between the rows. Without jostling, there is room for everyone and time for everything. The tea stall opens first because everyone needs warmth before the day truly starts. The owner, an old woman with silver hair dyed in a neat bun, pours hot water from a large kettle into small handleless cups. Tea is pale and fragrant, made from leaves grown on the southern hills. People stand around low tables, holding the cups in both hands to warm their fingers. Conversation is quiet. Someone's ox is limping. The price of millet has risen again. A traveling storyteller will perform tonight. The old woman listens more than she speaks, refilling cups without being asked. Steam rises gently and mixes with the pale morning light. By the time the sun clears the rooftops, the market is fully alive, yet still gentle. A fabric seller unrolls bolt after bolt of hemcloth dyed in soft shades of indigo and persimmon. Women finger the weave, feeling for thickness and evenness. They bargain in low voices, never raising the price too high or dropping it too quickly. A deal is sealed with a nod and the quiet clink of copper coins sliding across the wooden counter. Nearby, a potter arranges bowls and jars in perfect circles, each piece glowing with a quiet celadon glaze. Children watch from a respectful distance, fascinated by the way the morning light catches on the curved surfaces. The money itself is simple and honest. Most people carry strings of round bronze wushu coins, each with a square hole in the center. Coins are threaded on cords that pass through the holes and are knotted at both ends. When payment is made, the buyer counts out the right number and slides them off the string into the seller's hand. The coins make a soft metallic whisper like dry leaves brushing together. Larger purchases might use a small silver ingot or a bolt of silk as currency. But bronze is the heartbeat of the market. No one hurries the counting. Accuracy is a form of respect. Food sellers set up in the center aisle where the smells can drift farthest. Steam rises from bamboo steamers filled with stuffed buns and rice cakes wrapped in reed leaves. A noodle maker pulls long strands of dough with rhythmic swings of his arms, letting them fall into boiling water with a soft hiss. Another stall offers grilled skewers of lamb sprinkled with cumin and salt. The scent is warm and comforting. People eat standing up or sitting on low benches, wiping their mouths with squares of coarse paper. Children are given a single copper coin and told to choose wisely. They walk the aisles with great seriousness, In one corner, a blind musician sits on a small stool and plays a 4-string pipa. The notes are slow and melancholy, telling an old story about a wife waiting for her husband to return from war. Listeners drop a coin or two into the wooden bowl at his feet without breaking the spell of the music. Old men nod in time with the rhythm, their eyes half closed. Women pause with baskets on their hips, letting the melody settle over them like gentle rain. When the piece ends, there is no applause, only a quiet rustling as people move on. As noon approaches, the market grows warmer but never loud. Shadows shorten under the straw roofs. Vendors pour water over lettuce to keep them crisp. A seller of goldfish in large clay jars feeds his fish tiny crumbs and watches them dart like orange flames. Somewhere a baby begins to cry, but the mother rocks it gently and the sound fades as quickly as it came. Time feels wide here, like the square itself. There is always enough of it. By late afternoon, the pace softens again. Farmers pack unsold vegetables into baskets and tie them securely. The tea woman brews one last pot for the lingering customers. The blind musician plays a final quiet tune about moonlight on rivers. Coins are counted and tucked into cloth pouches. Children fall asleep against their mother's knees. The sun turns golden and long, stretching shadows across the ground like slow rivers. When the drum sounds again at dusk, the stalls close one by one. The square empties as gently as it filled. Tonight, let the soft clink of bronze coins and the slow notes of the pipa become the only sounds you need. Imagine standing in that quiet square long after the vendors have gone. The air still warm with the memory of tea and steamed buns. The straw roofs glow faintly in the moonlight. Everything has been bought and sold. Yet nothing feels finished. The market will open again tomorrow, exactly the same and entirely different. Let that gentle certainty carry you now deeper into the waiting dark. The year 200 to BCE smells of wetter than distant smoke. Liu Bang, a former village headman who once drank too much and talked too loudly, now sits quietly on a simple wooden throne. In the half-built palace of Chang'an, the Qin Empire has collapsed like a house of sun-dried bricks. Warlords are still fighting in the east, but here in the Wei River Valley the fighting is over. Farmers return to their fields as though waking from a long fever. Liu Bang changes his name to Emperor Gaozu and issues the first gentle edicts. Taxes will be low, corvée labor will be light, and anyone who brings in the head of a rebel will be rewarded with fields. People hear the news and simply nod. They have heard promises before, but this time the voice is calm. The Han Dynasty begins not with trumpets, but with the soft sound of plows biting into spring soil. For the next 60 years, the empire grows the way a child grows, slowly, steadily, and without noticing its own size. Empress Lu keeps the court quiet after Gaozu dies, ruling through her young son and then through silence. Roads are repaired, granaries filled, borders pushed outward just far enough to keep the Xiongnu at a respectful distance. Scholars copy the burned books of Qin on fresh bamboo slips, their brushes moving in measured strokes. Farmers learn to pay 1/15 of their harvest instead of 1/10, and the extra grain stays in their own barns. Children are born who have never seen war. Old people tell stories of the Qin that sound like fairy tales about cruel giants. The empire breathes in and out, calm and deep. Then comes Emperor Wu, the restless one. In 141 BCE, he is only 16, but his eyes already look farther than any emperor before him. He sends armies north against the Xiongnu, west into the deserts, south across steaming rivers. Silk begins to travel along routes no Han foot has walked before. Explorers return with tales of strange horses that sweat blood and grapes sweeter than honey. The court fills with new music, new clothes, new ideas. Taxes rise, conscription lengthens, and some farmers grumble quietly in their fields. Yet the victories keep coming, and the maps on palace walls grow wider every year. Emperor Wu plants gardens of exotic trees and builds palaces that float on lakes. At night he sometimes stands alone on a terrace, watching the same stars his peasant ancestors watched. wondering if the mandate can stretch this far. The years 100 BCE to a 1 CE feel like standing on a sunny hill at noon. Everything is bright and possible. Irrigation canals glitter across the plain like silver threads. Iron plows turn heavier soil than bronze ever could. Population swells until the census takers run out of bamboo slips. Scholars argue politely in the capital about how best to interpret the classics. Salt and iron are made state monopolies, and the revenue pays for more canals, more roads, more scholars. In the markets, people use shiny new wushu coins that bear the name of the reigning emperor. Children play with tiny clay chariots copied from the great ones that patrolled the frontiers. No one can imagine this noon ever ending, but even at noon there is a shadow if you know where to look. Emperor Wu dies in 87 BCE. Exhausted and uncertain, his successors are children guided by regents who grow fond of power. Palace women and eunuchs begin to speak in corridors where only officials once walked. Taxes stay high to pay for past glory while new victories grow smaller. Farmers who lost sons to distant campaigns now lose fields to wealthy landlords who lend money at quiet, crushing rates. In the countryside, some families paint their doors red and whisper that the mandate is slipping. The court hears the whispers and answers with stricter laws, more inspectors, heavier punishments. The sun is still high, but the air feels thicker. By the year 09 CE, the shadow has a name, Wang Meng. He is a scholar regent who believes he can fix everything with careful reforms. He takes the throne and announces the Han Dynasty, promising to return to the perfect ways of the ancient Zhou. Land is redistributed, slavery abolished, coinage changed every few years. Farmers wait for the promised relief and receive instead confusion. New coins are rejected, markets slow, granaries remain locked by officials who no longer understand the rules. Drought comes, then floods, then locusts. People begin to move, carrying children and cooking pots along the roads their grandfathers once traveled in peace. Wang Meng sits in his palace, surrounded by charts and diagrams, still believing that if the measurements are perfect, the world will obey. In 23 CE, the red eyebrow rebels paint their faces with red ochre and march on Chang'an. The city falls quietly, the palace burns even more quietly. Wang Meng dies beneath the blades of men who once bowed to his edicts. Out of the eastern mist rides a Yuzhu, a distant descendant of the old imperial house. He is calm, careful, and speaks softly. People follow him the way tired travelers follow a lantern on a dark road. By 25 CE is Emperor Guangwu, and the Han Dynasty is born again. This time called the Eastern Han, the capital moves to Luoyang, and the cycle begins once more. Low taxes, repaired canals, scholars copying books in the pale morning light. For another 150 years, the empire enjoys a long, gentle autumn. Emperors are often children, but capable officials keep the machinery turning. Trade flows along the Silk Road. Roman glass appears in southern markets, and Chinese silk reaches Rome. Paper is invented in a quiet workshop, and the first sheets feel like cool moonlight in the hand. Farmers grow rich enough to send sons to school. Girls learn to read in the women's quarters. Population reaches 60 million, more than the world has ever fed in one place before. In the evenings, families gather under lantern light and listen to stories of the Western Han as though it were a golden age already lost. Yet autumn always deepens. By 150 CE, the court is full of very young emperors and very old eunuchs. Generals on the frontiers grow powerful and keep their armies loyal to themselves rather than to the throne. Great families own land measured in whole counties and lend money to the government itself. Farmers who fall behind on taxes are sold as slaves to pay the debt. Yellow turban rebels wrap their heads in yellow cloth and promise a new age of great peace. Their armies are beaten, but the damage is done. Warlords rise where officials once ruled. The mandate flickers like a lamp, running out of oil. Into 20 CE, the last Han emperor, barely 14, sits quietly in his palace while 3 generals divide the empire between them. He abdicates with the same calm his ancestor Liu Bang once showed. But accepting the throne, the scrolls recording the event are written in perfect calligraphy, as though nothing unusual is happening. Outside the palace walls, people continue plowing, cooking, praying to ancestors, and watching the stars. The hunt is over, yet daily life feels much the same. 400 years have passed like a single long breath, in, out, and gone. Tonight, let those for centuries settle over you the way dust settles over fields. Let the slow rise and slow fall of an empire become the gentle rise and fall of your own chest. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was hurried. The canals still carry water. The roads still wait under grass. The stars still turn in their ancient order. The Han is sleeping now, the way all great things eventually sleep. And you may sleep with it, safe in the knowledge that tomorrow the same patient sky will be there. When you wake, let the last faint echo of bronze bells from a distant temple drift away into silence. Let the scent of wet earth after spring planting, of a losewood in a quiet study, of steaming tea in an early market, all blend together into one soft fragrance that settles on your pillow. The Han world has turned full circle and slipped gently beneath the covers of time. You have walked its fields, heard its water flow, felt the weight of jade and the cool touch of silk. You have listened to 400 years pass like 400 breaths. Wherever you are now, the room is quiet, your body is heavy and warm. Outside your window, the same stars that watched over emperors and farmers still keep their ancient watch. Nothing is required of you tonight. No harvest waits, no edict must be copied. No road must be walked before dawn. Only this, breathe in slowly and out. Let the empire rest. Let the centuries rest. Let yourself rest. Held gently in the same mandate that once held an entire world in balance. Good night. Sleep deeply, and when you wake, may you carry just a little of that Han stillness with you into whatever new day waits beyond the dark.